Okay, this video is a continuation of a video we recently posted that spoke about the mass awakening, how we need a very small critical mass, and we also talked about the concept of NPCs or backdrop people, and we're gonna expand a little bit on that topic today because a lot of people had questions about that. Full disclosure and a disclaimer. As always, we are truth seekers, not always truth speakers. What does that mean is we all have been conditioned in a matrix program about history, about our origins. Everything around us has literally been made up. So we're all truth seekers and we're seeking to get to the bottom of what is truth and what is real. And in that, we do make mistakes. So this never is an absolute thing we say. It is a working theory and sometimes very close to the truth. Sometimes it is the truth. So without further ado, let's go into it. NPCs or non-player characters, backdrop people, the concept is nothing new. And if we look at it from different perspectives, then perhaps we can get to a clearer picture. Now, scientists like Greg Braden and many others have said and now proven that about 200,000 years ago, there was a genetic manipulation that happened almost instantaneously within the human body that gave us something that equates to what we call consciousness today. If you will, the human beings, then you could call them Neanderthals, the human beings that we are today literally came about 200,000 years ago and we haven't changed since, genetically speaking. Now, Greg Braden has also said that it isn't that Neanderthals ceased to exist, but actually that we coexisted, even mixed, and to a certain extent, of course, there are still Neanderthals around. Now, this sounds kind of creepy and weird, but it appears to be a scientific fact. If you look at Neanderthals maybe as a consciousness-less being or very, very low consciousness, that's one perspective. In the Bible or in religion, you find the topic of soulless people. In a Native American history, in American Indian history, it's called the gift of the feather, which means that human beings that look similar to us were here as a servant race to the star people, and then were given the gift of the feather, which is the gift of consciousness. However, was everyone given that gift? Does a section of the population remain without that gift? We don't know. Before we dive deeper into the backdrop people, I'd like to look at a clip with you here by Dolores Cannon, whom I mentioned in the previous video. She was an author, regression therapist, and a speaker. She's been doing it for decades before she passed away and has written many books on the topic and has gone very deep. And she was actually the one who introduced the term backdrop people. So without further ado, Dolores Cannon, let's see what she has to say.
You have the backdrop people. When you cast a movie, what do? You cast all these extras, don't you? To fill in the background. Those are the backdrop people. And when I go into a crowded airport now, I was thinking, oh boy, look at all the backdrop people I've just created. I shouldn't have put so many into this. But this is what makes it even stranger. The backdrop people are not real. They're not real people. They're not anything. They are energy. Because you couldn't go through your own movie by yourself. You have to have other people. Now, the people in your life, those are real. Those are the ones that are on the evolutionary path. We have come in to evolve, to grow, to learn lessons, to reincarnate. We're the ones that are evolutionizing. They're real, and you've made these contracts with all these other people, but these other ones are not. And I said, do they have souls? They said, no. They're just energy. They said it's holographic.
If you will go into a shopping mall, for instance, or a football game or a basketball game, or anywhere with a large group of people, just walk around and look and feel what's going on, and you can spot them a mile away. They stick out. They're not the same energy set.
What would happen if I would go up and interact with them? Would they be real? Then I think it goes along with the idea, okay, you've got your movie. Now you suddenly gave one of these extras a bit part. They have a little speaking part. The ones that are very negative, they're like the bottom. Those are the very low, dense energies. But they're here, all of this is here to teach us something. That's what it's all about. That's what life is all about anyway. What are you learning? Everything that happens to you, you created to learn from it.
All right, so I think this is very interesting. As always, even while reading her books, many of these concepts seem very true to me. They speak to me, they resonate with me, others not so much. But I think we need to keep a very open mind. Why is this even important? My own experience has shown me that I have interacted in my life with many people who are lacking some of the most fundamental things, the ability to think for themselves, the ability to even answer the simplest questions outside of their programmed scope, the ability to change their minds, their hearts, the ability to awaken to a greater truth, the ability for empathy, the ability for seeing a bigger picture. There's a lot that these people that I have interacted with are not able to do. They're also often very negative people. They simply are complete programmed biorobots. Now, it's crossed my mind more than once that these are not real people in terms of what we consider a true spirit, a human spirit, a higher consciousness. I don't mean to say this disrespectfully because I don't know what the reason for this is, but the same thing that Dolores Cannon describes and others describe, I have experienced many, many times. I've actually put it to the test where I would walk up to someone that I would consider a backdrop person, someone I would usually not talk to. They probably wouldn't even really come into my conscious field, but I wanted to put it to the test. And they weren't able to answer the most simple questions or even carry on a conversation. It was almost like knowledge was being simultaneously infused so they could at least carry on a conversation while I was talking to them. It was shocking oftentimes. I've also seen over the decades a level of stupidity, inability to think, even the simplest things, that has simply led me to believe that we might not all be made from the same cloth. And again, I know this sounds disrespectful, but would you rather sugarcoat it? Would you rather lie to yourself about this? Because this is your experience as well. You've had this many times, and sometimes you interact with people where you think it's beyond comprehension how they could possibly not be aware of anything and not be able to think for themselves. What could be the reason? If we stick with the assumption that there truly is a control grid or a matrix that is imposed on this sphere that we live in, which I do believe there's an artificial control grid, I can feel it, sometimes even interact with it, and sometimes transcend it. It would make sense that there would be, just like inserted into this control grid are structures and buildings and other physical things that we see, would also make sense that there would be beings that are there simply to fill up the picture. They could be AI robots, they could be holograms. I mean, there's a number of things that they could be, and I do believe this is what we're seeing. That's why I said in this previous video, I think we need to focus our attention from trying to wake up the vast majority of people, which trying to wake up anyone doesn't work anyways. But in this awakening that we're all in shining our lights, we might be much more effective if we focus on ourselves and our immediate surroundings and the real people in our lives and the ones who actually seek to awaken themselves. Because people that are curious, interested, and they say, hey, you know what, I really need to open my mind here, that's the ones where we have most success with, and I think we should stick to that. There's all kinds of reasons to be more discerning, also in some terms less trusting to everyone. I do believe the spiritual community, I do believe the truth community has been led astray on purpose to go into a non-discerning mindset where we don't trust our intuition, we don't trust our observation, we don't trust our judgment, all of these abilities we have for a reason, and we've kind of been given this stamp where we're all one love, one beautiful thing, but I don't believe that this is necessarily 100% translatable into this realm. I do believe in the highest realm of consciousness, all that is. Yes, I do believe everything is consciousness. But we are in a fairly isolated bubble here on Earth that works in its own structures, and I believe discernment, judgment, and coming from a true authentic place is very important. It's proven very important for me in my life. Again, for me, ways to how to raise my vibration is always meditation, being in nature, doing joyful things, thinking about beautiful things, creating beautiful visions. And that, when it raises my vibration, it also automatically connects me with like beings. So in this, I don't have a lot of interaction anymore with people that I would consider NPCs or that I would consider backdrop people. Again, I would encourage you, if this interests you, if you feel a deep pull to this topic, go and look into this for yourself. Research. The last thing we want to do is create some sort of division or discrimination. At the same time, when we go into the deep truths of what we see, sometimes things are completely different than we were taught and then we were led to believe, and this is freeing. So a lot of these programs that we've been brought up with, it is also a process of grieving those programs that we go through, because some of these truths have felt so right to us, but they have been wrong, they haven't been a fact. And so we grieve because we attach to those things. We build our realities around it. We build our lives on it. And we're in a grieving stage because we see the world is crumbling down around us. The old matrix is falling apart. And what will be in its place is something authentic and real, but it needs to be built. We're the ones who have to build it. So this is why we go so deep into these topics. It's not for entertainment purposes. It is really because the truth will make us free. Most recently, the NPCs, the non-player characters, in my view, are there to manipulate our perception and to peer pressure us into decisions that go against the human spirit. Following authority, following orders, obeying. Disregarding our divine intuition and going with the masses. This is what they are there for, because they are a huge body of people that moves according to their program. They can't any other way because that's what they're programmed to do. And so when we get frustrated with NPCs, because some are in our families, because they're all around us, they're in leadership positions, we actually follow that program. Now, what people have commented on previous videos is that this is dangerous talk, that this dehumanizes others, but I don't dehumanize them. I have no ill will. I would never suggest that anything should be done against them, or that go out and classify people. But you have already experienced this in your life, whether you want to admit it or not. You've talked to people who did not have a spirit, and you felt it. Now, how can we differentiate? I want to give a few parameters that I have found and I have seen. I'm not saying they're absolute. I'm not saying this is the truth. This is my experience, because there are nuances. Let's talk first about people that have a spirit and how I have noticed their reactions to certain conversations and topics. Now, there are people who have a awake spirit. That's the best kind of way to start. When you have a conversation that comes from your spirit, you speak from spirit. It's very different. You know this. When you speak from program, when you speak from your education, from your educated mind, your brain, then you have a different conversation. When you speak from spirit, it's a different conversation. When you speak from spirit and you talk to these people, no matter what level of awakening they're on, you feel a resonance. You feel a resonance. You feel it, and they feel it too. They might not fully understand what you're talking about. They might not grasp all the concepts, but you feel a resonance, and they feel something in themselves that resonates. It's clear. You don't have to spell it out. Everybody can feel that. Now, then there is the asleep spirit. The asleep spirit might be someone who will argue with you, but there's something in their eyes and in their spirit that they feel it. Their programming might kick in, all that, but you feel it. You feel the spirit. You feel that resonating thing inside of them. It's like when you have you ever seen a crystal bowl, a singing bowl, and you hit it gently and it just resonates? Well, that's the same kind of principle. You can tell. Then we go to the completely mind-controlled people with a spirit. Those exist too. That's far more nuanced. It's where you really have to go deep within to feel their spirit because it's buried, but it's there. It's buried under programming that is very, very heavy. If it's really specific mind controlled programming, like certain entities have used on people. Okay, so this is entities, people with a spirit. Now, if you move over to people without a spirit, you can have an intelligent conversation, but there is no, when you speak from spirit, there is no resonance whatsoever. It's like bouncing off a wall. It goes over their heads, it bounces off of them. There's nothing that goes within, and you can see a blank stare. A blank stare. There's nothing. There's nothing that can resonate with what you're giving, even if you're not speaking. If you just sent out beautiful, loving vibration from your spirit, not from your mind, not from your thoughts, from your spirit, there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. It's a blank stare. Those are NPCs. And I do not believe that they can develop above a certain level vibrationally. They have a scope within that frequency range. They have been created for a certain purpose, but they don't have that spirit. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can spend a lifetime investing your time, energy, your thoughts, your creativity into trying to show them something, and it will never, ever resonate. At the most, and some of these NPCs have very narcissistic traits, at the most, they will fake something, but you will never feel a real resonance. They will fake understanding. They will fake this to manipulate you into certain behavior. Why is this an important discussion? Why are we even talking about NPCs? And others have talked about this too. There are levels of NPCs. There are highly functioning ones, and then there are very, I mean, they're just fillers in a room. I'm sorry to say that, but they are fillers in a room. There's nothing there. There's almost nothing there. And that sounds harsh, but if you think about a matrix, if you think about an electromagnetic grid that's being superimposed on a reality, why is that harsh? They're just part of the program. They just appear there. They're holographic, if you will. Sometimes they're even just holographic in their nature. And this is not for the purpose of dehumanizing anyone. It's for the purpose of bringing back your power and not wasting it where it doesn't fall on fruitful ground. That's really what this is mainly about. If you can come to the understanding that you are talking to a human being, has the same appearance but does not have a human spirit, how much time are you going to invest in trying to convince them of anything, or show them anything, or share your spiritual practices with them? It's impossible. And I've dealt with a number of these people, and it has become quite clear. Now, am I certain about the proportions of, are there more real humans and more NPCs? You know, I have an assumption that I shared, but I'm not going to do that any longer. It either scares people or it triggers them very strongly. What I want to focus on, what we want to focus on, is developing ourselves spiritually, become the best possible version, which will help us discern truth, which will also help us to elevate this whole space and elevate our field. And this is what this whole thing is about. What this whole journey is really about is allowing consciousness to rise and rise and rise above a certain level where it isn't within the sphere of influence of this matrix any longer. Every simulation has its limitations. Consciousness does not. Even in our reality, every simulation has its limitations. You can go and be in a flight simulator. It can't do infinite things. It can do the things it was designed and programmed to do. So I believe this superimposed grid reality, it can't do things that it wasn't programmed to do. And the people within it that were NPCs and put here can do things beyond what they were programmed to do. But our real consciousness can. It can rise above it. It can break through the glass ceiling. I do honestly believe that because I've been in that space, because I have visited the space of infinite possibilities more than once. And it does not include all these limitations. It does not include all these invisible walls. It does not include all this suffering and all this bullshit that we're going through right now. But nothing else but consciousness is the actual answer. Does that mean you shouldn't apply yourself physically? No, not at all. We need to apply consciousness in practical ways. We need to practice it in our reality. We need to infuse our decisions with it, our relationships with it, and even where we have to deal with NPCs, we do it from a higher place of consciousness. Why not? It's not about them. It's not about them at all. So why not? Why would you lower your consciousness for those conversations? You just do what you have to do, say what you have to say, and go about your way. That's all. But this is it. A spiritual, real connection. And now this is going to get highly triggering, but I think it's part of this conversation, so I'm going to share it.